Rivers are classified in grades of 1 to 6. 1 being moving water that's very simple and straightforward. Class 6 being the extreme limits of what is navigable. You might find a Class 1 on any sort of moving stretch that you could run in an open canoe with absolutely no experience. Class 2 will look a little more like this. You'll have some waves, possibly some rocks, but pretty much straightforward, stay in the middle, the current will take you where you want to go. Once you move into the Class 3 realm, you're actually going to have to do some maneuvering, possibly around rocks, possibly around holes, and maybe some big waves that could swamp a canoe or flip your kayak. Once you move into the Class 4 realm, the route is going to be hard to see from your boat. Most of the time on Class 4, you're going to want to get out and take a look at the route so that you can tell where you want to go and what obstacles could possibly be there that you absolutely have to avoid. On a Class 5 section, not only are you not going to be able to see the route from your boat, but you're also probably going to have to set yourself some safety. There could be features or hazards in the river that you absolutely have to avoid to protect yourself from injury. On Class 5 rapids, it's best left to the experts, and it's always good to set a rope and have friends that know rescue skills. In a Class 6 rapid, these rapids are rarely run and usually by teams of experts using all possible safety precautions from the bank. A lot of times a Class 6 rapid will only be run occasionally at optimum water conditions, not necessarily something you just bomb into day after day once you're familiar with it. A good thing to keep in mind though is that anytime you're in moving current, whether it's Class 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you can encounter hazards that will upgrade the danger quite a bit. It could be a tree across the river, it could be just a log sticking straight upstream, or it could be a rock that's got an undercut corner to it. Anytime you're in moving current, you need to be aware that there could be a class danger just under the surface or possibly on the bank. So always know where you're going, and always check ahead of where you're going to make sure that downed tree is not in your path. When you're just starting out in kayaking, you might hear the names of all these different great rivers and you're saying to yourself, which one is right for me? Well, in general, when you're starting out, you're going to want to stick to Class 1, maybe Class 2 rivers, so that will be safe for you. A way to do this is look for a local shop and find a guidebook to the rivers in your area, or possibly a Whitewater website, such as AmericanWhitewater.org. This way you're going to be able to not only find the Class 1 and Class 2 rivers, but also directions to the put-in, the take-out, water levels, everything else you're going to need to get you started. If you feel like running more Class 2, Class 3 whitewater, might be a good idea to find somebody who has experienced that stretch of river before until you have a really solid roll and a little bit of an experience behind you. One of the basic rules in paddling is that we never paddle alone. So this presents a dilemma. How do I find other people to go paddling with? Well, when you're just starting out, it's best to go to your local kayaking shop. These guys are going to have the name and address of some kayaking schools in the area, or possibly even just a boating club. You can go to the monthly meetings, you can possibly go to a roll clinic, but also you're going to meet other people in your area who might want to go paddling on the same rivers you do, and that makes it a lot more fun. Anytime you're coming to a river, you get to the put-in, you meet the people you're going to paddle with. Once you decide that you are actually going to paddle down the river with these people, you are all tied together, and there's a lot of things you need to consider before you go. For instance, how strong are the paddlers in the group? If you haven't paddled with some of the people on this particular river, or especially if you've never paddled with them at all, you need to talk about what class of paddler they are, what sort of skills they possess, what sort of river signals they're going to use, and what sort of rescue skills they've experienced and practiced in the past. If you're going down a run with people you don't know, in general, I want to be on a much more secure run for my abilities. If I'm going to be pushing my abilities that day, I want to go with a group that I know and trust and have paddled with before. That way, all I'm pushing is my skills, and I know that I'm not pushing their rescue abilities. Something else to consider when you're paddling a river, we are all tied together. If you're a really strong paddler and some other member of your group is having trouble, you're all going to get to the takeout at the same time anyway. There's no point in blazing ahead, running harder lines, or challenging yourself even further when some members of your group are having trouble. It's a team sport. If you're the stronger paddler, you should be helping the weaker paddlers. Show them the safest line down the rapids. Help them portage their boats. And if you're the weaker paddler, let someone know that you're feeling uncomfortable with what's going on so that you can arrive as a group at the takeout before sundown.
I'd like to share you my approach to river running that I think is going to help you really enjoy it a lot more. Most people think that river running is going to be scary. You're always going to be put in situations that are a little bit out of control, and you're going to be scared the whole time. Our objective in river running is to have as much fun as possible, of course. In order to do that, you need to be in a state where you're being challenged and you're enjoying the challenge, but you're not overwhelmed. Now, one thing to always remember about river running is you have the option of walking a rapid. Any rapid you get to, you can decide whether to run or whether to walk. My recommendation at the beginning is you try to avoid as many unpleasant experiences as possible. And for each individual, that's going to be different. Some people are really going to enjoy paddling in situations where they may be rolling a lot, tipping over a lot, and that's okay with them. They're not totally overwhelmed by that. In fact, they enjoy it. If you're a little more timid, you may prefer running rapids where you're staying right side up almost all the time. So the objective is to be in a state where you're challenged but not overwhelmed. And remember, for everybody that's different, and you're the only one that can decide. Don't let peer pressure ruin the experience for you. Make sure that you're paddling within your comfort zone. You decide if you want to push that comfort zone a little bit, and it's going to be a lot more fun.